Hello, everyone, and welcome back to ITEC 4242 Database Administration, and we are going to be covering Lab 4 today. Uh, I figured I'd do this rather than just shoving the answer key at you guys and expect you to know what's going on, because I didn't really actually have a lot of people. I had most everybody submitted, but I had a fair number of you that never submitted, and I didn't get any questions. I didn't get any comments or any sort of concerns from you to say, "Hey, I'm struggling. I'm having a hard time. Professor, please help me." As far as like, I had some of those, but I didn't have like details. I didn't have anything as far as screenshots or specifics of what was occurring. And I know that I've had a few of you address that. Hey, we haven't really dealt with SQL code before, which I find awfully odd because I mean, when I was in database principles with Make It State, we were made to like know it forward and backwards. So this is absolutely news to me that you're not at least getting some sort of basics. But hopefully, in the next couple of weeks, as we approach the midterm, we can kind of cover that. I'm going to have a bonus assignment that is going to be worth a whopping 8 points, which is pretty much an equivalent of one of the assignments up to this point. Actually, 2 times the assignment for like if we're talking the introduction, because that was 4 points. But as far as a lot of these labs, they're about 8 or 9 points apiece for the programming stuff. So if you actually buckle down and do the review exercise code that I'm going to give you guys Monday, then you guys are going to be sitting a lot prettier than you are now. I suggest everybody do this because it's a good learning method. And although it is not required, I'm not going to thrust it upon you, but I do highly suggest that you go over it and at least have a tentative understanding of how triggers, functions, and procedures work, because we're not quite done with them. I know that we're going to be covering them with security as we deal with auditing, because not all database management systems have a built-in auditing feature. Oracle does, but I mean, that's Oracle. I mean, they make enough money to put in an auditing feature. But a lot of companies actually build in their own audit features so that if something gets deleted and you need to recover it, or if there's some underhanded transactions that are kind of going on, you can trace it behind the scenes. So we will be visiting triggers, functions, and procedures in at least some capacity, but hopefully we won't have too much more strenuous coding. We're going to be kind of fading away from that and more into concepts and a lot easier code as far as security is concerned. But I digress. This video is more about the review than it is anything else. So diving right in, here is an example of number 1, the create trigger. Now, as far as the name of this trigger, I think I borrowed this from something that I found online. It could be called gobbledygook. For all I care, it doesn't really matter. What matters is the create trigger right here, and that it's before the insert. And why it's a before insert is so that it prevents the transaction from occurring if the result is a negative value. We want to stop the quantity value from being negative, because if you have a negative inventory, well, it kind of depends. Sometimes companies want to have a negative inventory to show that they need to back order and they need more of a certain product. And that's kind of why I actually have you delete it in the second exercise. But so some businesses will have it one way, some businesses will have it another. But in this particular case, I pretty much just showed you this example before, where you declare your message, you set the message to some sort of string value. I had something a little bit more complicated for the example. It was concatenating a message with the table value. or the string of the table, because that way we could see what the actual table was, and then we spit out an error message, and that's it. That's all that needs to be done for that. Now, as far as this is concerned, all you need to do is take these 3 lines right here, and you put them in a procedure, just like this. Nothing any more complicated than that. I'm not trying to trick you guys. I'm not trying to put some secret code in there. I did give you guys an extra challenge, and that was to see if you could pass along the table name to kind of customize the procedure so that it can be utilized by multiple tables. It doesn't really matter what table it comes from. If it has a in parameter, it can be used to concatenate a string together. And I do believe I had, let's see, param 1. What this will do is simply take the concatenated message. This doesn't work, and it'll tell you where it came from, and spit it out. And why we would even use a procedure in this is to kind of clean up the trigger code. All of these are just commented out. You don't actually need any of this, any of the hashtag stuff. You can absolutely delete it. Bam, gone. And it just simply cleans up the triggers. You can create multiple triggers to accommodate a number of different ones. All right, so let's say we try to insert onto that table. I need to hide this message down here from Google Hangouts, and this doesn't work. Products. That's all it is. For part 2, literally we're just getting rid of a gobbledygook right here. Bam. Drop that trigger, it no longer exists. And as far as, it's like, well, wait a minute, there's 2 triggers, right? Well, you do the same thing for orders. You just change actually these couple of lines here, and it's going to work, because quantity, the name of the field in both tables is quantity. So it literally just works by changing that. Okay, so what was number 3? Number 3 was create an after trigger that would deduct it from the inventory. Now, this was another reason why I had you guys drop the trigger. Not only that, and you get to actually learn and figure out how drops work, but in this particular instance, we're doing an after insert. And one, I've had you all do this to kind of familiarize yourself with before and after inserts. I saw one of the questions we had in the discussion for last week was, can you create a before and an after at the same time? Well, as far as triggers are concerned, I don't think that there's really a means of doing that cleanly. I'm sure there's some sort of convoluted way of doing it, but it kind of really defeats the purpose, because all triggers tend to have a specific purpose. And as far as before and after triggers are concerned, before triggers tend to work as a validation tool, kind of how we dealt with it in number 1, where it prevents a value from occurring. It presents an error message so that the transaction does not happen. If we made it into an after insert for number 1, then the transaction would have occurred, and then you would have had an error message, but the integrity of the data is already jeopardized. But as far as what this insert consists of, it is simply an update. Nothing fancy, nothing convoluted. You just update it and set the value deducting from the product's quantity, based off of the quote unquote new value from orders. And that's it. So let's say, bam, and then we, oh, helps if I actually, man, I am so unprepared for this. What's in orders? Bam. You'd have thought, since this is the second time I actually try to make this video, that I would actually be prepared. Okay, so we've got, just do a new insert statement. Insert into orders, values 1, comma, 2, comma, 3, comma, 100. All right. And the transaction occurs, and bam. Try that again. For anybody that didn't follow along, I just simply did not. Did I miss a trigger somewhere? See, this is why you always validate. Because then you get caught with your pants down, so to speak, and then you find out that stuff isn't working like you intended to. Right? 21. Hey, and it worked. Right? Right? Yep. Okay, so it worked. It actually worked before, but I was looking at the wrong number. I was looking up here. But now that you've dealt with me frantically moving around, this is exactly the reason why I have you send screenshots. This is the exact reason why I have you send code, because you don't always get the result that you expect, and you want to check and double check your work. And I'm not cutting any of that out because that's a good example to live by. I believe this function's already created. This is number 4, and basically selecting the product value, the product description based off of an integer I value. It doesn't have to be I, it can be whatever you want it to be, as long as you're consistent throughout your coding. And you select the description into a value, which we've declared right up there, as we don't try to hide our code. And we just spit it out. We do a return value. Then in the end, we just select it. That's it. I have not tried to trip you guys up at all. I'm sorry if this has been really difficult for you guys to kind of grasp. I know that some of you have mentioned that you have not had any SQL before, which is beyond my imagination of weird, honestly, because I feel that that should have been covered in database principles. That's what was covered in my class, and other than normalization, I'm not sure what you would all cover. I don't know, but maybe that's something that I can have a nice little chat with some database principle teachers, so that future generations are a little bit more prepared. This is the pinnacle of what our coding will look like. We're going to have a little bit of this. One, with the team projects, I do expect you to display this level of knowledge on the team project. And we will be visiting this again with auditing and all. But we're not going to get any harder than this. We're not going to get into some extreme if statements where clause while loops. I said where database on the brain, but any wild loops or anything like that. There is an additional class above and beyond this one that is supposed to be database programming. I don't know what the ITEC number would be, but if you are interested in taking that and not graduating, or if you're graduating and you just want to take a course, I mean, by all means, I'm not going to stop you. But that's all there is for this. We are going to do a module in the next couple of weeks that is just simply review. We're going to do a 2-week midterm review, and I will be covering that shortly. I may or may not make a video on that. I'm still to be determined, but I may just announce it on D2L what it is. But that's particularly it. I will have another video, however, discussing the midterm and what are the expectations, what you're going to get into. So stay tuned. And peace out.